And Bill Voth joins us here on Big Board Sports on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Bill, Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado, thanks for a few minutes this morning. We appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. How you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Great, man.
Waiting to hear from Gettleman at 11:15 press conference. What are we getting here? I think some Giants fans are familiar with him because he was with the organization for 15 years, but certainly not in this role. So what are the Giants getting here in Gettleman?
You're getting an old school guy that's going to do things the way he wants to do it. It's not going to be all that PC. I loved being around him because down here in the South, people do things kind of softly. They're kind of always polite about it, and Dave just kind of was just a bull in the china shop down here, and just did what he wanted, and he did a lot of unpopular things, but a lot of what he did were things that just needed to be done, and I thought that was bold, and I think it's one of the reasons why the Panthers are now going to the playoffs for the fourth time in 5 years.
So the reason that he was fired last July by Carolina is
most of what I just said. a lot of that. There were some football decisions. The Josh Norman decision to let him go when they had the franchise tag on him, that was an inexcusable decision. But there were a couple others, but mostly it was his bedside manner, and they allowed him to do some things like cut Steve Smith and do these unpopular moves. But the final straw, and this was the buildup. This wasn't why he was fired, but it was the final straw. Was he just wasn't all that friendly when it came to extensions for Thomas Davis and Greg Olsen. So it's just the way he handled them. And so it sounds kind of ridiculous. Like, really? Like, it's a way someone talks to somebody, but yeah, down here it did matter, especially for someone like Thomas Davis and the owner, Jerry Richardson, who now is dealing with his own stuff. Didn't like the way Dave handled those things, and so that was the final straw, and they moved on.
I mean, the resume is 40-23. The record when he was the general manager there, and he was the 2015 Executive of the Year. It's on paper, that looks pretty good.
Ben, actually, Bill,
I thought he was.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but I thought he was great. But here's the one thing though that you always had to say about Dave was that he came in and he already had a quarterback. He already had a head coach. He already had a middle linebacker in Luke Kuechly. He had Greg Olsen. He had Ryan Khalil. So he had the spine of the roster, from Marty Herney. That was someone else's stuff. So that's really nice when you can come in as a general manager and you don't have to worry about finding a quarterback or finding a head coach. And so that's obviously the difference now of what he's facing up in New York. And I mean, Steve Smith, yeah, that was an issue. But you could argue that Steve was at the end of his playing days. What Dave's going to do with Odell Beckham, I have no idea. Dave wants nothing to do with knuckleheads.
Wow.
And Odell is a special kind of knucklehead, but he's also a special kind of player. So I have no idea. I think that he's going to deal with him. I think he'll take that talent, but I don't know.
Bill Voth, Carolina Panthers reporter and creator of the Black and Blue Review, with us here on Big Board Sports 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. You can find Bill on Twitter as well. Get his thoughts on Dave Gettleman at Panthers Bill. Bill, Chris Honorado here with Roger Weiland. Sounds like, by the way, Dave Gettleman deals with people. I'm from New Jersey. Sounds like he'll fit in just fine in New Jersey and New York with the way he might deal with people. But how do you think he'll approach the situation at quarterback? Obviously, the Odell Beckham Jr. thing, I think Giants fans are on pins and needles because they want to have him back. Sure, they'd love to see him clean up his act on the field a little bit, but they'd love to still have him on their team. What do you think Gettleman will do at the quarterback position? One, I guess, the future of Eli Manning, and then two, the potential of drafting a guy. Like you said, there's a rebuild here to do.
I don't know, and I think that's why I think it's a tremendous hire, But that's why that's what gives me a little bit of pause, saying I don't know, because I haven't seen him do that as a general manager before. He came in and Cam Newton was already in place. Ron Rivera was already in place. He had so many pieces in place. It wasn't a personnel rebuild like it is in New York. Like it was when he came here, it was a salary cap rebuild. So we had to do a lot of painful things as far as contracts go. But bring in a bunch of unknown pieces to kind of fill in and kind of plug in some holes. Where in New York, he's got to make some major moves, and so I don't know what he's going to do about the Eli Mannings and stuff. I'm sure those are things that he's already decided. I'm sure those are things that he had to say, what he's going to do with Eli and what he's going to do for a head coach and what he's going to do with Odell Beckham Jr. I'm sure those are things he's already decided to do, and he's already talked to management about that. But what those are, I can't even guess right now.
Well, one of the things that has come up in names as to who might be the next head coach of the Giants, so maybe you can help us out here, is Steve Wilks. What's your thoughts on Wilks? How close is he, do you think, with Gettleman? Do you think he would be right away on a short list to become the next head coach of the Giants?
Yeah, so I guess I should say that maybe I don't have. When I say I don't have any idea what he's going to do, okay, maybe at quarterback and and with Odell. But as far as head coach, yes, I can totally see that happening. Steve Coach has been a head coach in waiting down here. Obviously, Dave got to know him. They have a decent relationship, and so yes, that makes a ton of sense. And with Steve Wilks also comes Eric Washington, who's the Panthers' defensive line coach, who is at least a defensive coordinator in waiting. And so it's something that Ron Rivera does not want to lose. Ron Rivera does not want to lose Steve Wilks and Eric Washington, and because those guys, they're a package deal. And so that right there, if Dave does make that move and the Panthers can't retain those guys, which, if Steve gets a chance to be a head coach with the Giants, I think he's going to go ahead and take it. That's going to be a big loss for Carolina, and I think that would be a nice start for Gettleman to get those two guys. You get two defensive-minded guys up there, discipline, which I think we know a good the Giants need. You're going to get those in those two guys.
Bill, the biggest takeaway from me from our chat with you right now is when you said Gettleman does not like to deal with knuckleheads. and you're 100% right. Odell Beckham Jr. is so darn talented. He is one of the best receivers in the NFL. The Giants really need him. He is the biggest knucklehead going. So that ought to be very interesting.
Right? He's uncontrollable.
Yeah.
No one's been able to control him yet.
I don't know that anybody's tried hard enough. Yeah.
Right, so we'll see. So I honestly think that's fascinating what he's going to do with him, because again, Steve, he didn't want to deal with him anymore, but Steve was, he had diminishing skills at that point. Yeah, he had a few years left in him, but he wasn't where Odell is right now, which, Odell still could, the sky's the limit for him.
And
so
man,
I don't know.
If you're going to draft a quarterback at 2 and tell that QB you're not going to have Odell Beckham Jr., that's not going to go over well for a rookie quarterback.
Right, but what's Odell going to do to a young quarterback?
Yep.
Well, we'll end it with this.
That's one of the reasons why Dave got rid of Steve, is because they kind of treated Cam Newton like a fragile egg, and it was like, well, Steve was too mean to a lot of these people, and Steve was too mean to a lot of the young receivers, and so they felt they had to clear out the locker room.
Bill, we'll end it with this, and it's a good ending. You went to Syracuse with our former colleague and good friend, and Andrew worked with me for 9.5 years in the Albany market, and love him, and he's been phenomenal at what he's doing at the next level. You went to SU with Andrew Gettleman. That's a good thing.
Is it? I don't know. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I'm trying to make this a positive ending.
I had to come up with something. Smart alecky to say. And the only bad thing I can ever say about Andrew is he's a Yankees fan.
Oh, that's true. He is a Yankee fan, no doubt about that. But we like seeing what he's been able to do with his career and where it started, pretty much right here in the Capital Region. Bill, thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports. We'll pay attention to what Gettleman has to say at 11:15 this morning.
And by the way, and sorry if you guys have to go, but listen to what Dave says in his press conferences, because Dave also will say, like, Dave isn't like, he isn't like a lot of these guys that like think football's the CIA. Like, he'll tell you stuff, and then you can go back and listen to his press conferences, and like he won't tell you specifically what he's going to do, but he drops like little hints, and it's like, huh, okay, yeah, he kind of told us he was going to do that, and he went and did it. So he doesn't. There's no smoke screens with him. He's very upfront, and so I'm a bit jealous that you guys are going to get him for a few years.
and it sounds like he may be nice to deal with in terms of media, because Jerry Reese hated to be in front of the microphone talking to the media. It sounds like Gettleman might be just the opposite.
No, Dave doesn't like doing it, but he's great when he does it.
Okay. All right, there you go.
Take that.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, Bill, thanks. Happy holidays. Happy New Year to you, and thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports.
Sure, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Bill Voth, Carolina Panthers reporter.